to the game designer Q&A panel here at Dice Tower. Yay, Dice Tower! And so as you can clearly see from your program, I'm Jeffrey Engelstein. It's nice to see you all. I hope you like my games. I did Survive Space Attack and like that Dice Duel, was it? Oh God. Sorry, Jeff. Okay. So anyway, my name is Kathleen Mercury. Jeff isn't coming in until tomorrow, and he asked if I would lead the panel today, and being an attention freak, I said yes. So, but thank you guys so much for coming. What we're going to do today is I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves, talk a little bit about the games that they've done, and then we'll do a Q&A. We've got a microphone set up right over there. And so feel free to ask spicy questions, not salty, but just spicy. And we're just going to have a good time for an hour. Everybody cool? All right, excellent. So who would like to go first? Daryl Andrews, you have had a request.
I'm Daryl.
Oh, no mic.
Oh,
Here, give him that
we need a hot mic.
This one doesn't work?
Hot mic. There it goes.
No, it worked.
Oh, it works now?
Yeah.
I just gotta get real close, intimate with this mic.
We did this.
I'm Daryl Andrews. I've co-designed a bunch of games, some with Erica, who you'll meet later. And then my most well-known game is Sagrada, co-designed with Adrian Adamskew, who's not here right now. And then I also just started a publishing company called Maple Games.
Yes.
So keep an eye out for games from us.
We'll just go down the line. Go ahead, T-Rav.
Hi.
Oh, God.
Hi, I'm Travis Chance. I design games, but I mostly function as a publisher and a developer. I run a company called Colossal Games. Used to work, every year I work for a new company, so you can't really keep, the CIA can't keep tabs on me. So Colossal Games is the new jam. Yeah.
Mic out. Okay. I'm Erica Bououris. I have a couple games with co-design with this guy on the end here, and I've got a bunch more coming out in the next couple of years. It's kind of awesome. And
Which games in particular?
coming out or already out?
Both.
The question is which ones I can answer. So I've got Roar out and Ink Monsters out right now, and Kickstarter coming in November, I believe, for Bosk with Floodgate, and then there are another 3, though I don't know if I can mention their names yet, coming out in the new year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. My name is Kathleen Mercury. I actually do a little bit. I call myself Amateur Plus. I've got 2 games signed, including one with Colossal called Dirty Dragons, which everybody should buy because it's going to be amazing. I also co-host a podcast, Games in Schools and Libraries. I contribute to Our Turn Yet and some other podcasts and stuff. And I've been teaching game design to kids for over 10 years.
My name is Robert Burke. I've got a small publishing company where I publish my own designs. Battle for Souls is one. Draco Magi, Operation Faust. I also publish through Gray Fox Games and Quick Simple Fun Games, and I've got a few games coming out with WizKids over the next year. So that's it.
Cool. You can leave if you need to, apparently.
I'm Eric.
Oh, stop. Come on now.
Oh, sorry. My name is Eric Long. I make.
At Origins, his
Sorry,
name tag
Origins
said
joke.
Eric Long. And
he was the guest
and he was
speaker.
pretty much Eric Long
It's
ever
about
since.
time somebody got it right.
Yes.
You are kind of long. You're a long
Right?
man.
But there you go. I make games.
Come on, Eric.
This like humble stuff is killing me. Ignacy, please show them how it's done.
Show them how it's
Show
done.
how pro does it.
So I did many games, more than he. No, not that.
Yes, that's how a pro does it. That's how a pro does it.
My name is Ignacy Trzewiczek. I did Robinson Crusoe, Imperial Settlers, Rattle Battle, Grab the Loot, and the first Martians, and many different games. And hopefully some of you knows me already. So
The best games on the market.
yeah.
That's awesome. So quick question for everybody who's here. Who here is interested in designing games or does design games? Just curious. Okay. And of everybody in the audience, who has any published right now or signed? Okay, so you guys are wanting to learn. All right, so this is your moment since we have them all here and there is a microphone. Please make sure if you want to ask a question, jump up. Please don't be shy to do so. So I was thinking about this last night when we were hanging out, and Eric said that game designers are fill in the blank. You said, you provided an adjective. Do you recall that?
People?
It's a good start.
Who are, you said that game designers are completely insane.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I thought would be kind of fun is go down and everyone can say what they think game designers are. But Eric, why don't you start first, elaborate, what do you mean by game designers are completely insane?
We design games for a living.
Vocal gold. I don't know how I can top that. Robert, what do you say? Game designers are what?
I think game designers are passionate for sure, because it's something you really have to have a passion into to move forward.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Erica, game designers are what?
They're apparently opening boxes at tables.
Terrible.
I'm going to say they are creative. You have to have a lot of ideas, and most of them I'm willing to throw away.
Yes, that's tough. Mr. Travis Chance.
Oh boy, do I have to be that guy? I'm always the devil's advocate
They're
thing,
butchers.
right?
That's why you're
Right
here.
now, I'd say game designers are on fire because the lights, that's a lot of light.
You look good.
It's so that
It is
camera.
tanning and panel. Game designers, I don't know. I think they're like all people. They come in all shapes and sizes. I've met people that are creative concept. I've met people that are mechanics and don't care about theme whatsoever. I don't know. I think actually Eric Long's comment's the most poignant one. They are people. And people they are.
Ignacy, what do you think? Game designers are what?
I found many friends in the industry, and I find them super friendly and social and extremely kind, except me. Yeah, they are super open, super friendly, and this is amazing.
Yeah. Daryl.
Thick-skinned.
Thick-skinned.
I would say need to learn to fail and fail faster and be okay with it.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing, because I presented at the Tabletop Network conference in Utah a few weeks ago. It was for game designers. And that's one thing that, like, with what I do with students is I teach them how to fail. You know, because especially when it comes to game design, when you're embarking on a new idea, I know I'm going to fail many times before it can kind of work, and then, you know, all that. How do you handle that process of embarking on a new project when you know it's going to be fun, but really frustrating? Robert, you look like you've got something good.
Yeah, well, there comes a point when you have an idea where you decide to turn it into something physical that you can actually play. And making that decision to actually spend the time to build something out that you can start play testing is the first step. Mm-hmm. And usually I think for me, if that play test goes the way you expected it and you think it can turn into something that you first envisioned, then it starts to advance. And then from that point, it's just a process of rebuilding and refining and taking stuff away. Mm-hmm. So it's really more of a process than anything.
Yeah? Eric?
I only get excited when I'm failing. Like, if generally speaking, the most, and this is not like, I didn't start that way, of course, but recently, the more safe I feel a game is, the more I feel like, oh, this game is going to be pretty good. The less excited I get. I get really excited when I play a game and it falls apart completely, and it makes everybody, including and especially the developers working on the game, really frightened. We're like, I have no idea if this is going to work. I have no idea how we're going to develop something like this. That's what gets me really excited. And 9 times out of 10, it fails. But there's usually those games, they're riding that razor's edge. So if you do anything but exactly the right thing, whatever that may be, it's going to be horrible. But if you manage to hit that, you hit that on the head, lightning in a bottle, whatever it is, it's going to be absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Ignacy, what do you think?
I hate the process. It's frustrating. At every single seminar for the young designers, I say find a different job because it's a month of frustrations. Yes, for the most of the time the prototype doesn't work. You want to fix it, and it's just a frustration. That is difficult. Like it's really very difficult stuff. And for many weeks or months, my family cannot stand me, and I cannot stand the whole world. Like, this is frustration.
Yeah. Daryl.
Yeah, I just also, whoa, that got real loud. Okay, we needed to test that. So, also I wanted to say, Ignacy has an incredible book, Board Games to Tell Stories and Board Game Tell Stories 2. I'd highly recommend them. They talk about real life examples of the journey. I really found that encouraging to hear kind of the steps he went through and the failures that he mentions and the pain. And as designers, then as you read that, you empathize with that, and then I found it very inspiring as well. So I just also want to plug, because he might be too humble to plug his book.
Thank you.
Travis.
What was the question?
The question is, how do you feel about failure when it comes to game design?
It's part of the process. Like, you can't find your way to success without failure. So if you're a person who gets your feelings hurt easily, you shouldn't do this. It is a minefield of criticism. People are nice. I think Ignacy's right. People are very friendly, but ultimately you're making a product. You're making something that's in a box that has a price tag on it. So you can put your hopes and dreams and, tell how your father met your mother and work that into the mechanisms, but that doesn't mean that it's a good game or a game that anyone wants, or I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Yeah, failure is part of the process. I typically procrastinate when I design. It'll start with, I'll get an idea in my head and I'll think about it for like 2 months, and then I'll put it in a notebook, and then the rest of it's just staring at spreadsheets and having to put color filters on the screen because my eyes hurt from staring at spreadsheets so long. That's my process.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually happy people, just putting that out
Not
there.
right now.
Except for Ignacy, he didn't sound too happy.
I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love what I do love what I do. I'm trying to give like this, there's this idea that like people from the outside looking in have this idea that like game designers just sit at a table hanging out with their friends, like it's the opening credits to like a sitcom or something, and it's a lot of like staring at spreadsheets and like trying to do complex critical thinking. Mm-hmm. It's lonely sometimes.
Travis is lonely, guys. Yeah, we only see each other at cons.
So I think we kind of failed to convey what failure means.
No,
right?
I'm going to add something
started
first.
with me. It was my fault.
I'm going to add something first, and then you can continue. I think you don't really see failure until you put your games in front of people. You can think that your game works on any level, but people are where you're going to truly see your failure. And you're going to fail again and again and again because you're going to keep putting in front of people. And it's really hard to make people happy, but at the same time, that's not really what you're listening for. You're listening for what more do they want out of your game so that you have an idea of the direction you need to take it. And we'll probably talk more about feedback after, but I would say most failure really comes from your audience, and you'll know how bad you're failing based on what they do when you put your game in front of them. Eric.
All right, we no longer failed.
Aw.
Yeah. Well, so a number of you are publishers now. In addition to game designers, how does your approach to game design change as a result of being more on the publisher side in addition to being a designer as well?
You've got a bunch of people to talk to.
So it's two totally different things. I mean, designing a game is more of a creative endeavor where you can put your vision forth. Publishing is really a business. So if you're good at business, then publisher is probably where you want to go. If you're more creative, then you probably want to do design. Publishing, there's a lot of things you have to worry about that you don't necessarily have to worry about as a designer. First, you need to understand what makes a good game, right? That's the biggest thing, is being able to select those games that aren't just good, but that will work in the marketplace and bring revenue to your company. You have to understand marketing and fulfillment and logistics and just all that stuff that goes along with any business. You have to be good at that to succeed as well.
But how do you like when you're actually working on a game,
right,
your actual design decisions, like how much does the publisher side of you then impact the designer part of you?
It doesn't impact the designer in me at all, because I really don't think about whether my design is going to be good to sell the game, because when I design a game that I do myself, I'm doing it because I want to get it out there. It's a design I want to see alive. But that's just me, so it doesn't really impact that at all. It will impact me in a sense of, okay, I should probably use cardboard punch-outs here instead of minis to keep the weight down. I do think about stuff like that. But with Kickstarter, if you're going to use Kickstarter, that dynamic changes too, because now you can say, okay, well, we can do these as tokens, and if we hit a certain level, we'll have enough money, we can do minis, so boom, that's a great stretch goal that we can have. But that's really, for me, that's the only time it crosses over at all.
Cool. Ignacio, what do you think?
I think that being a designer and a publisher is a very dangerous place. On one hand, the designer has this knowledge, as you mentioned, that you know about the publishing stuff, so you can create a game that will be designed in a way that is a good product and easy to sell. But on the other hand, you are losing perspective on your design because you are a publisher. Quite famous failure of myself is the first Martians, and it is a game that I designed, and there was no publisher who would look at this objectively and give me some cruel advices how to fix something. So it is a very dangerous place. Like you as a designer love your product, you think it's a great game, your friends and playtesters tell you this is amazing stuff, and if there's nobody around you who is just publisher who just thinks about the product, money, publishing, etc., you might end up with the problem.
Daryl, you're just starting getting into the publisher side. What are you thinking about as you're kind of embarking on this new endeavor?
Yeah, I mean, I think so far we've heard real distinction between a game and a product. And I think the evaluation process of thinking through the questions as a designer, you don't want to limit yourself. You want to kind of play in the sandbox and see what's the most fun. At the end of the day, that's the question. Versus wearing, the publishing hat, then you got to get beyond, what's most fun, but also what's a viable product and what kind of questions you need to worry about when it comes to that. If the product is also marketable, if the product is, going to engage the community at this time. So things like that I'm now asking more of, not that I wouldn't have factored those before, but now as I'm wearing kind of the publisher hat, then I'm thinking that way, and I'm trying to think of that even sooner in the process.
Right.
So if, for example, someone's pitching a game, now being on the other side, I'm listening for things like what I foresee the market's gonna be interested in, if I can. It's a bit of a guess. And then also trying to think, specifically we use Kickstarter, so thinking through like how a game could be done well on Kickstarter, and that's a whole nother category.
Yeah.
So
What's the scariest thing about this to you right now, this whole new journey?
Oh, for me, I'm like in the honeymoon phase, so it's super fun.
You got
and
new
easy.
hats, new shelves.
New hats, new shelves, and I don't have a game on Kickstarter yet, so I'm not pulling my hair out. So.
Yeah. Well, Travis, you've been with Colossal now. This has been like basically just a year, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So, like after a year, and because you're a really good designer and a really good developer,
I'm
but
an
now
extremely average designer. I think I am a good developer, yes.
Okay, so we'll agree on a good developer. So, but now doing the publisher side, what happened, like, where would you rather spend your time, on the publishing side or doing the developing that how do you find that balance between those two?
So I have like the trifecta, right? Because I make the games, I do the product development side of things, the publishing product development side of things, and then I do the actual game testing and development side of things. I think that my strength is largely in the game development side of things, because I do the other things. So I know how to make a game, I know how to make a product, but I want to kind of refine the actual product into something that is mechanically fun, that it's hitting on all the cylinders for the audience for which it's intended. So it's a weird thing. I mean, I think Ignacy might have said this, like with regard to you lose perspective. I've pitched games, like I've had other games made by other publishers, And the process always amazes me when I'm just a designer. Like, it's always super weird. Like, I made the Buffy the Vampire Slayer Legendary game last year, and I submitted my first draft, and they're like, first 3 of 4 milestones done. And I'm like, this was like 2 hours of work, man. Like, let me go back in there. But of course, the last milestone ended up taking months, but we just kind of got lucky on our first try. And that's not how my process works. So it's kind of hard for me because Daryl's knows my process pretty well. I'm very hands-on. I like to get in there and really work with people. And that's the most rewarding part of it for me. Well, I mean, we're working together.
Right.
I like to give the guidance. I like to throw ideas out there and then let the designer kind of take that information and run it through their filter and then apply it how they see fit. If I think things are going off the rails, I'll kind of nudge, hey, here's an idea that you have to do. But most of the time, it's all suggestions.
Well, and that's the thing from my own perspective, having worked with you and continuing to work with you on this game, you know, like the game had some problems. I mean, there was definitely a good core idea, but with you throwing it back to me, I mean, there were times where I was like, I need more specifics, and you're like, you got to figure this out. Not in a bad way, but just, you know, gave me the freedom to do so. And for me, it was like such a hard experience, but it was such a good one because that's where I couldn't just, you know, see where boundaries were by bouncing against them from other people. I had to figure out where my game was fun, where my game was good, and that's super, super hard. And I want to get to that in a second, but Erica, you don't publish. So as just a designer, what advice do you have for people when it comes to pitching your games and putting them out there? And we'll hear from the rest of you guys too, but just from the just straight, clean designer perspective.
Yeah, you kind of want to know who you're pitching to. So the biggest thing is when you're shopping around a game, not only do you want to know if your game's going to fit someone's catalog or their future catalog. By the way, ask where their divisions are going, so you know what they want in the future, so you know who to approach them with again when you go to the next con. But the big thing is sometimes when you're shopping around a game, even from the production side, is you might have come up with something that a game company's never done before. They're maybe afraid of doing. So you're also trying to shop around to see who can do what you've put together. You might have to adjust that as you go, but I mean, I tend to think 3-dimensionally. So a lot of my things have very bizarre pieces, and then it's not necessarily always the easiest thing to go and say, not everybody can make that. So you don't just have to change your game because one publisher can't do the production of it. You might be looking for not just the right fit of the publisher for the game type, but also the right fit for a publisher who's willing to try to make those pieces. So it's really, really important to know who publishers are. What are they looking for? What are their catalogs like? What are their different imprints? A lot of publishers have acquired a lot of other publishers at this point. And you could be pitching to one person who's thinking 3 different lines in their head. And you kind of need to know that when you're going there to say, you know, it might actually fit down 2 of those imprints or something like that, right? So, yeah. Did you want more specifics?
You keep going. You're on a roll.
Or do we want to talk about just pitching in general?
Yeah, okay, so we'll shift to there. So we'll start with you. So pitches. What do you want to hear when people pitch you games? So, and Erica, from your perspective, what do you think is important when giving a pitch?
I think it's giving a really good overview of the game as much as possible, trying to kind of really, if you can't, you have to know that sometimes you're going to get to play part of the game and sometimes you are not. And you kind of have to be prepared for both. So are you going in and just being able to describe the game with your words and getting them excited that way? In which case, you're really looking at kind of perfecting your pitch and you're almost advertising yourself in your games. You need to think about what you want to say. If you're going to get a chance to actually play something, and this is actually a good tip from Daryl down here on the end, is kind of stack your game a little bit so when you go to start playing, you're playing kind of the key fun moments. Like you want to show them right away, this is the fun. All right, and if you've already got your game set up to be like, you know which cards are going to come out, you know where you are in the game, you know they're going to see right away what that strategy or what that core like mechanic is, you need to do that, right? Because most publishers are not going to sit and play your whole game. That might come if they're really interested later, right? So you almost have to work on advertising and marketing, how to create that pitch. Travis is just waving at people.
Bunch of people that are walking by.
That's fantastic.
That they can see you.
Cool. Ignacy, what do you look for in a pitch when someone comes to you with a game idea?
Yeah, this is exactly what was said. That I'm looking for the games that will match our lines. And there's so many designers who send us prototypes that we will never publish, even if the game is super, super awesome, but if this is a family game or if this is an abstract game, I will not publish it. So if you're sending email and pitch to the wrong publisher, you might have a wrong message because maybe you think the game was bad. No, it wasn't bad. It was just not for the right publisher. So you definitely have to do research exactly as it was said and find a publisher who will like the game and convince them, hey, this is like other games in your catalog. Hey, it may fit your lines. Basically, if you're a game designer, maybe you are not the salesperson, so maybe your pitch is not super, super awesome, so maybe you can consult with your friends or somebody who can help you how to pitch the game, because it is a moment of making a sale. Yes, you have to convince publisher that your product, your prototype is awesome. And so if you don't have such a skill, find somebody to help you, because this is the moment of truth. Like, you have something good, hopefully, but it is not yet enough. You have to sell it, right? Many young designers send us, and this is a good strategy, a short video presenting how the game works. This is very simple. Everybody these days has a smartphone, so it is really, really super simple to record short 5-6 minutes video and do a sales pitch, basically. Show why this game is awesome, why it is interesting, and why it would be very, very good for your company.
Cool. Mr. Long? Never gets old. Never gets old.
So, what are we looking? So let's assume you've done your research. You know exactly who you're pitching to. You're pitching a game that's going to fit our line. Well, all that's crossed. So, and we'll assume that you're plus 10 charisma. You've got all the sales pitch. You've got all that down. So, we on the publishing side assume, like, put yourself in our seat for a second, right? Assume you're probably meeting us at a convention or a gathering of some kind. We've already seen 100 pitches that day from 100 different designers, many of them, sometimes 100 pitches from one designer. It happens, right? So assume two things. Number one, we're kind of tired. We're a little bit frazzled. We've seen a ton of stuff and we're a bit of sensory overload. But number two, the purpose of us being at these shows is to find something special, something amazing, something to get us excited. Most of us are here because we love games and we want to find the thing that's going to light our hair on fire. So what I would suggest is, number one, if your game isn't getting us excited, don't worry about it, right? Sometimes it's just not a good fit. Don't move on, either show the next game or go to another publisher. But try to get to, the biggest tip I can give is try to get to us asking you questions. The faster you can get to us being the interviewer rather than the interviewee, the more success you're going to have. Like, I've had several people come in that they're very prepared. They have like a 5 or 6 minute thing where they will go and they will motor mouth their way through the entire pitch. Like, I know everything about the game and we cannot get a word edgewise. They don't read our body language. They're not looking for our reaction to it. They're just like, all right, I've got through all the pitch. Any questions? I'm like, well, yes. Like, the first sentence you said, what kind of game is this again? And we've already forgotten about all the details. Try to make it as interactive as possible, right? Try to get the publisher asking you about the game. That's in my opinion, and when I was pitching games back in the day, I was always about show as little as I can, gauge how interested they are, and get them to ask questions.
Well, everybody said really valid points. I think you hear some things that are kind of shared views on this, and I was going to go down that same road because it's all very good advice. Know who you're pitching to, have your pitch ready, listen to body language, understand what they're saying. But I'm going to take a little different approach. Like conventions like this one, for example, are great. So if you have a design, you should be play testing your game at conventions like this as well. Right, not just your playtest groups at home or your blind playtest groups, but bring them out here and play them with as many people as you can, right? And if there's really something going on with your game, if it's building some excitement, people might start talking about it, right? And before you know it, publishers are going to start hearing about it. And if you can generate some buzz because you have something really special at a convention, you'd be surprised how many publishers are going to come up to you and ask you, "Oh, I heard about your game," right? Now you have an opportunity to really pitch it and even play it with some publishers, right? Because you got gamers talking about your game at a convention. So don't underestimate the opportunity that conventions provide you to show your game to people.
Yeah, and don't worry about people stealing your idea. That floats around a lot. I mean, because one thing that I found is if something doesn't work for a publisher, this happened to my boyfriend. He showed his game to somebody, and Mark Selmeyer, he's lovely. And he showed his game to somebody and said, this isn't going to work for us, but you need to talk to so-and-so. And he talked to so-and-so, and they signed the game. So the gaming world is a really, really small world. So knowing who you're talking to, and people help each other out. It's not necessarily, there's competition for good games, but since companies are so different, knowing who you're pitching to, but know that, everybody knows each other and that can be helpful. And it's so fun. I was so nervous the first time I did it. But it was so fun because I was talking about something that I loved and I was excited and they were excited and, and it's just it's such a great way to share the love of what you do with other people. And, sometimes they don't like it. Sometimes it's too expensive. Sometimes it's the wrong type of thing. That's okay. It's a lot of fun just to get your ideas out there and know that you created something and you put it out there in the world and other people might dig it. And that's the best feeling in the world, seeing your name on a box. It's so cool.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yeah.
I forgot one point before I was meandering there for a sec. When you are pitching to a publisher, the pitch is two parts. It's a pitch for your game, but it's also an interview process. When I'm speaking to a designer, I'm looking for two things. Number one, how good is their game? And number two, what is it? I'm looking for some insight into what it's going to be like to work with that designer. And I do a lot of my questions are based on just trying to get into that flow and and start asking some development questions. And generally speaking, of course, publishers are more incisive than most, right? We will immediately, sometimes you'll get to a publisher and they'll look at your game and say, hey, can I retheme that before you even start explaining the game? Being defensive and standoffish immediately will hurt your pitch a lot, right? You don't have to be totally open-minded and be like, yeah, do anything you want, right? We expect you to be passionate and excited about your ideas, but we also expect you to be we hold you a professional standard. We want you to be able to be something that we can work with, that can have flexibility when needed, and can also be able to stand your ground and defend your ideas when needed.
I think Daryl wanted to add.
Oh my God.
Are you okay? That thing
This is a very sensitive microphone. Mr. Andrews, what would you like to add?
Well, I would add, along the same lines, not only professional, but at the end of the day, we're all people. Remember, as Travis was mentioning before, people are tired. People want to work with people they get along with, things like that. So, as you're pitching, just get to know each other. There's a real level of who you work with and who you get along with. There's a lot of good games out there, and you can only work with so many people, and you can only work on so many projects. So at the end of the day, too, let the publisher get to know who you are, what you're passionate about. Be flexible, be open if you are. If there's things you don't want changed, then communicate that. And if the right fit, that publisher is not going to want to change the things that you don't want changed, or you need to be flexible to that. You might find multiple times that publishers are suggesting, have you thought of a different theme, or have you thought of changing the roll and move mechanic, or
Why would you change roll and move? It's been working for thousands of years. Spinners. That's so much better. That's so much better.
The bubble. Come on.
Oh, I hate that bubble.
So, especially one thing that I do now as a publisher is I will ask questions on if they're open to changing certain things, not even necessarily for the sake of changing it, but to see how open that designer is. So I think part of the question that a publisher is trying to evaluate is not only is this a good game, but is this going to be a good process?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, so you can kind of think of pitching, even though they might not necessarily be interested in your game, it's kind of like a little interview or date, or I don't know what you want to call it. Because at the end of the day, if they did have the good experience, even if the game's not the right fit for them, they're more likely to want to have a meeting with you again.
Yes.
They're going to get a chance to see more and more what you're capable of. Even if you pitched 4 different games to someone, they've never said yes, they now know kind of the different venues that you are capable of producing. And I mean, that could not only keep it going that they're going to want to see more and more from you until something clicks, but you never know if you're actually going to get approached to make something based on the fact that they saw, you know, X, Y, and Z, and if you combine those together, that's exactly the game that they're looking for right now. I want you to make that. Yeah. And so a lot of these things can come out of that too, so don't just think, you know, a pitch meeting that didn't, you know, come about to a contract doesn't mean it won't have other things that could come through it too.
Yeah, because it was about a year ago where a guy I know, his name was Travis Chance, put out a thing saying, hey, I'm starting a game company, and if you have anything big, splashy, Kickstarter friendly, get in touch with me. And I was like, Travis, I have something for you. And so we met, I brought it down here, and we played it, and he said a bad word, but it was a good bad word, that he liked it. And so there we go.
Yes.
Yeah. That's probably the word you could curse yourself saying now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can say
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing, though. I think there really is something to that as far as being a business of relationships. You know, people up here all know each other. You know, people hang out with each other. Gamers are super fun. Game designers are super fun. And I think there's definitely something to be said about just getting to know people, talking to people, and, you know, because I've got other projects that I've been asked to do from different publishers because they know me and they're like, hey, let's work together on this. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, sounds like fun. Travis, what were you going to add about how great I am?
I don't like to take appointments at all. And the reason why is because it feels very fake. I typically, so last year at this show, I signed 3 games. And I just did it by going and sitting down with Robert and meeting some of his friends and playing games all day. And then I kind of got to see the game when it was like someone wasn't prepared. So the roughshod version instead of the here's my used car salesman pitch. Because I think there's like game designers fall into 2 brackets. It's really good designers that are terrible salesmen or women, and then the opposite where it's like they can sell you anything, but the game is awful. And then, so I kind of like to be feel like I'm in a more genuine situation where I'm like talking and interacting with people. So I don't know, I think we had an appointment. Remember last year you said like, let's have an appointment. I was like, no. I'm like, I'll find you, you know?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
To the opposite side, which is, I am a big proponent of setting appointments up. Shocking, I know. And for a couple reasons, and just as valid as Travis' reasons, I find that it gives you a chance, for instance, to like stack and have your prototype ready, to be efficient, to like make sure that you don't miss that meeting, especially if you've done your research and you've paid to come to this convention, you really want to talk to that, you know, that 1 or 2 publisher that you think is a great fit. Planning ahead and contacting and trying to schedule something can be a great opportunity, and like Travis is saying, it works for some people and it's not going to work for others. But I'm a big fan of that. Now I say that, and yet like for Dice Tower, people that contacted me to make a meeting, I said no because I wanted to enjoy Dice Tower, and it's a lot of work. Doing lots of appointments, which he does do lots of appointments too.
I do appointments with, you know, like if Martin Wallace is like, I've got a new game, I'm going to do an appointment with Martin Wallace.
Only if you're important.
Is he here?
You know?
I
I mean, even like Burke, like I'll take, you know, because Burke designs, also, as he said 30 minutes ago. But I don't know. I'm not saying that my style is by any means the way to go. I'm just saying that I have found it to be successful for me. The games that I've published, I often kind of find out in the wild. It's rare that I find a game through a formal meeting. I still take meetings. I just don't really like them. Unless there's someone that I've already worked with or something like that. The other thing I do is I do the complete opposite, which is I just look at sell sheets. I'm like, send me your thing. No, I'm not going to make your game about different types of pretzels. Like, not interested.
That sounds good.
They're so good.
I will.
I was like, if it's like a cheese sauce
Is there
mechanic,
that
I'm
many
in.
different types of pretzels?
Beer cheese dip?
It matters how prolific you are too, right? Like if you're Daryl Andrews and you design as many games as he does, you better have appointments, right? Because you have so many you need to sell. So if you have a lot, then that's really going to help you schedule your time. So it's more
He's
important.
like
If you only have 1 or even 2, then it might not be as important.
I was going to say, there's different types of cons. So, for example, Dice Tower, I don't think you'd have to have a ton of appointments because, to be honest, you can walk over to the exhibit hall and say, hey, when do you have free time? You can't do that at Gen Con. So I'm going to go somewhere in the middle of these two and say it depends on what con you're at, I think, to how publishers are going to necessarily react to you doing that. You can walk up somewhere here and probably book a bunch of meetings on the fly. You cannot do that at a super structured con like Gen Con because you're probably not even going to get halfway across the room before you need to be somewhere, or that person's already left, or whatever it is. You need those scheduling ones.
Those aren't
then, too.
conducive for, I think Eric and I we've talked the last few years at Gen Con and Essen where we're miserable because we're
so booked
looking at games and it's like the worst environment. Everyone wants all of you at all times and it feels like I don't feel like I'm giving the designer the best of myself in those situations. I'm like, okay, cool. I find myself slipping into weird accents like at Essen where I'm trying to, like I'm speaking half Korean, half Irish.
Do your South African accent.
Guys, don't pitch this game.
No. I have an unorthodox style of doing things, but, I think, Daryl, like guys like Daryl and Sen, who I met at the same time, they have this kind of, this process that really works for them, and I do appreciate that process. I don't know, I kind of like getting down in the dirt and pulling weeds and seeing what's going on face to face instead of I'm a control freak is really what I'm saying. I don't know if you picked up on that.
I mean, I would just say reach out ahead of time. My good friend Josh Lobkovitz, he's with Gray Fox to Games, and he doesn't take any interviews on the fly. You have to submit ahead of time. He probably wants to see a sell sheet or a video, and then we'll set up an appointment, do like some pre-screening to make the meetings that he does have more effective. So I would just say if you're thinking of putting something out there, contact people ahead of time, and they can say, hey, find me at the show, or they can set up an appointment, and then you've got kind of the best of sort of both worlds.
And to just be clear, that's for me. So like
Yeah.
AJ and Chris, like my developers, they take formal appointments. I'm okay with that. But if you have a good game, I'll find you, so don't worry about it.
He'll find you. He'll find you.
He knows.
He knows. It's Travis.
Yeah.
We follow the buzz a lot.
Zero home
Exactly.
runs, lots
People will talk
are,
about your game.
singles.
This is the thing, you was in your description of how you said, well, yes, I signed 3 games last year because in a group of friends showed me. How do we
Okay. So the question is,
be
Travis's friends.
yeah. Okay, so just to make sure that people,
with the
wait, hold on.
lunch.
Hold on.
Irish.
Wait.
For years.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me repeat the question. So the question basically is, like, it's great if you're Travis's friend. Asterisk. I'll just put that. I'm just kidding. It's great if you're Travis's friends, but what happens when you're not in the know? What happens when you don't know people? When you're not part of that circle? I think that's a fair question.
I think this industry it's just my main philosophy in life is showing up is like 90% of life. Like, so in 2010, I decided I wanted to do this. I literally had just only played, I played Magic the Gathering and Scrabble. And then I started playing board games randomly. And I just decided I want to do this for a job. And so I just took all of my disposable income and just started going to conventions and asking questions, meeting people. And I'm a relatively outgoing person, so for me, that's not difficult, but I understand not everyone's that way. But I think it's the cheesy, it's not just who you know, it's who knows you type thing. The good news is there's like gaming enclaves everywhere, like just groups, this whole, co-designing thing is like really popular now, and that's a good way to meet people, right? Like you're doubling down. So I have no qualms with anyone just walking up to me cold and being like, hey, I have a game. Like, I'll be honest with you, you can do it. You can find me, or I'll find you. And I'm okay with that. I know some people aren't. I know that they're, like Eric Long is really busy and,
That Eric Long.
and Ignacy, I can't pronounce Ignacy's last name.
I'm going to
so
disagree with the senator from Indiana over there.
Yeah, I'm here for a reason.
The junior senator.
I don't know. I just think like if you really want to do it, like if you really want to be a game designer, this is one of the nicest communities of any community, I would think. I mean, extremely supportive, extremely like people are just referral based in this to a massive degree. So a lot of it is just being willing to ask questions like, oh, hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? You have a game? Who did it? Like, do you know anyone who's looking for games?
Offer to play test prototypes.
Oh, that's the best thing. If someone's like, you see, like, you know, you're like, whoa, I see Post-its. You know, sit down and play their Post-it based prototype, and then maybe a conversation will happen from there. I mean, that's how I kind of got started off on all of this. And then, you know, we had our first games come out through the same publisher, and I'm like, I want total control of this process. And then I started making my own games. So.
You wanted to jump in earlier.
Yeah, but Erica had a.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Long, sorry. Also, Mr. Lang.
Would you like to go first?
I was just going to add how to meet people, but you're welcome to go first.
So this is the point here, the salient point here, right, which is a completely fair point, is how do you get in when you don't already have an in, right? And I'm just going to expand on Robert's earlier point because it's really important, maybe possibly the most important point I've heard so far here, that's that it's like market bottom up, right? Play the game here at Dice Tower. This is one of the best shows for that, like besides being one of the best shows, period. You play your game with gamers, play it and honestly and truthfully, get your ass kicked in get your butt kicked with feedback, take that feedback, iterate, like have it evolve at the show. If your game isn't generating buzz, that's fine. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. That's okay. Like there's always the next game. But the people like me are, and people like Travis to a lesser extent.
Whoa.
I know. Are wandering around the show. Like, I mean, I'm here on vacation, but my eyes are always open. I'm going to be in that game room looking for games, and I'm not really. I'm less interested in making my friends' games, right? Like, we all work with people that we like. We all work with people that we know. But I'm interested in what's a good game. And generally, I almost don't even want to speak to the designer. I just want to watch that game at the table. So there's a good chance that if you've been playing your game in the exhibit hall, I've been watching you without you knowing.
Being creepy about it.
That's right. I'm a creep.
Eric's watching you.
No, but we are looking for that. So like the more you, if that's the way you want to go, if you're uncomfortable with the barriers that as they are set up right now, just get your game played by gamers. You will be found, I guarantee it, at a show like this.
Okay. Adrian, you had a question. Adrian Azell, designer of Shogunate from Indie Boards and Cards.
Amazing artist.
So with the glut of games coming onto the market, do you find that informs your design in terms of first play experience or out-of-the-box UI versus replayability?
Yep.
Well, thanks. Done.
Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, significantly. I would actually say that now first-time experience is far more important than replayability, because then that experience, people are going to talk about it, they're going to share. So the first-time experience, I think, is actually far more crucial. Replayability is a feature as a bullet point, I think, when it comes to selling a product now. I'd also say that also forces games visually to stand out, not only through art but also components. I think significantly now a game that looks boring in any way, like is plain Jane, is getting more and more forgotten, even if it's an incredible game. So I'd say that those are two things that are significant changes now with the increase of games coming out each year.
Cool. Other thoughts? Cool.
The glut of games, Ignacy.
Nope. Someone over there talking?
No.
The important people talking?
I mean, so...
It will be now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. First play experience is extremely important. I do disagree with some of the conventional wisdom right now that about what the first play experience means. The point of the first play experience is, at least to me, in games right now, is to be literally a commercial for what what your future game experiences are going to be like. It does not mean that you need to have a balanced, wonderful little construct where everybody has a chance of winning at all times and blah, 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 blah. What you, again, my opinion, but what you are looking for is excitement in a box. I want to play your game and I want to put it down and I want it to stick in the back of my head. I want something about that game to make me want to come back to it. I have played a few games at the last couple shows. One of the big ones, The Mind, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of. That's first Guild CRS this year. I had a terrible first game experience. Like terrible in the conventional sense. I played with some people that hated it, right? And they were like, "Well, this is a game." And the fact that it woke up this group of players that were just so dead set on hating it. And I was like, well, what's going on here? And I played it, and I was with the people who hated it. I did not forget that experience, and I wanted to come back to it, and I wanted to play it again, because objectively that game was memorable. There was something about it. So there are a lot of publishers that will say, and in theory and in practice, that you should sort of sandpaper off your game experience to get rid of the high highs and get rid of the low lows and just try to middle the game toward making sure every game is going to have a nice predictable power curve and arc and all that stuff. I actually think that's kind of BS. I actually design for high highs and low lows. There's a risk that your game can fall apart, but that risk pays off if your game can be amazing on that first play.
You have a question?
I've heard a lot of different stories back and forth. The Out on the Limb podcast has talked about you should have art when you're doing a pitch before a publisher. But then Travis was talking about, well, just post-it notes is fine. What for the designers? What's your experience and what pitch gets the best?
So you're asking how important is artwork and initial prototypes that you show to publishers?
I don't like the designer to impose their idea of the product, especially if they don't have intimate product knowledge. Now, that isn't to say don't make a suggestion, but when someone sits down and they're like, all right, this is based off of Napoleon Bonaparte when he was age 20 to 22, I'm like, no, we're not, no. This game is about pretzels.
Which you didn't like, so you turned it down.
Yeah, so, which I would, and I still reject the game. I'm just letting you know the pretzel thing works here.
But it's memorable.
There are designers like J.B. Howell that sits and does rough graphic design, so the user interface is easier, which I appreciate because I don't want to have to pay my graphic designer to make the prototype usable. But I have a developer on my team that literally takes all of his notes on a legal pad. When he makes revisions, he hand writes them, and it looks like he writes with his feet. I can't read anything that he's saying. But it works for him, right? It's in his process, it works for him. I would rather the designer put more thoughtful time into the game and what makes the game great and what makes the game function than to try to sell me on what it is. My very first game that I designed, was a game called Infamy, and I pitched it to Zev. And Zev was like, I really like this. And the idea was Total Recall, Cyberpunk. And I was like, I'd written 30 pages of flavor text. And Zev's like, what do you think about making this a Euro game about taking clients on business dinners? And I just shrunk inside my body. I'm like, no, it's Total Recall, but cooler. And I said no to Zev. I said no to WizKid or to Z-Man Games because he wanted to change the theme. So big life lesson.
I think that most publishers will tell you that they don't care about a polished prototype and about artwork and graphic design, that they can see past that into finding a good game. And for the most part, I believe them, but exactly. They're human beings like all of us are, and if you present them something that has more polished art and looks good, it's going to help immerse them in your game. It's going to come off better. It can only help. It will not hurt.
But it's not necessary.
No, it's not. And like I said, all publishers will say that, and I believe them.
Nope.
But it's not true.
I'm agreeing on this side of the table. I'm sorry.
Let's double down on that actually a little bit. So that's true, right? So it's a different question though, right? Yeah. So what you're talking about is essentially going down the road of self-publishing, where you are investing your own money to develop your own IP and develop your own artwork and stuff like that, right? That is, I wouldn't recommend, right? I honestly wouldn't recommend, but you damn Skippy, your game better look pretty, right? It's got and what I mean by look pretty is have a sensibility. The general, I think the thing I will always say is that thoughtfulness will always be better than thoughtlessness, which means that yes, your game needs to be fun in the abstract as it is, but the more thought that you put into other parts of the game, it doesn't have to look like a finished product, but I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, I've seen hundreds of games. I can tell when a designer appreciates how color choice in his components affects the mood of the game, affects the player experience of the game. I can tell when the size of components has been considered for the game, because you're playing with really big, really tiny tiles that you expect me to shuffle hundreds of times. Sure, we can look past that to a degree, but we also look at hundreds and hundreds of games. The more thought that you put into it, even if we may disagree with you, at least puts you on a more even footing with the publisher, who is going to put in hundreds of hours, but they're going to respect your opinion a lot more, because they know that you've put the time, you've put the effort, the work into your side of the argument, as it were. Absolutely. I'll just share one tiny little story. I played a game when I was working with FFG like 15 years ago, I think, and I was told it was an amazing game. There were people in the department that said, "This game is awesome." I opened the box, and the person lined their box with fiberglass. And so I opened the box and I cut myself on the box. And that's the only thing I remember about that game. Like, I'm sure the game may have been fine, but I bled on the game. And that's it. That person's game was not published. And I know it sounds frivolous and silly, but in hindsight being what it is, I realized that you know what? They didn't even put the basic respect into considering what the unboxing experience is like for the publisher. Why should we put in the consideration to put in hundreds of hours into evaluating this game?
Mm-hmm. I just want to add a little bit to that too. And again, it's going to depend on a bit of the type of designer you are, but just think that majority of people out there are visual learners. I mean, we are predominantly a visual learner over anything else, and that's like most of humanity. So the minute that you put something in front of somebody that's already been thought out, how they're going to look at it, how it's going to read, how, like, all of that's been figured out, that's already going to get you that one step further ahead. They can intuitively look at it and go, I think I'm supposed to do this. And if they're right, you already have less to explain. They already want to know more. But I think another part of that is part of designing a game, at least when I do it, is some part of that experience is that look and feel. It's part of the story or the game I want to deliver. A big part of that is how it's going to be received visually. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but I mean, and I probably go a little bit crazy with my prototypes anyway, but for me, that's a big part of that experience that somebody playing the game is going to have, and I feel like that needs to be a factor in it. I think it's great to say that something can be played on a Post-it note, but I think at the end of the day, you have to be a well-known name before somebody's going to look at a Post-it note and say, yes, I want that.
Right, because it's going to look like it's just unfinished.
I think, I mean, even with Kathleen, so the game that I signed from Kathleen was a game about pigeons pooping on people.
And it was great.
No, it wasn't.
That was the right theme.
No, it would have sold tens of copies with that theme. I saw the mechanisms were great, and it was fun, it was unique, and it was big, which is like things that I wanted. Like it was a perfect Kickstarter project. So maybe part of, I'm realizing as everyone's talking, is I'm going to likely suggest different themes anyway, so I don't get totally married to someone executing like to the highest extent the game whenever really I'm looking at what I look at the game for what it could be, I guess, than for more than what it is.
And it was hard to let go. It was really hard to let go. I had that theme for like 7 years, because I'd been working on that game and sitting it on the shelf and all that. And the thing is it's like, well, he wants to make it. He wants dragons. Dragons it is. I can learn to love this new world I'm in, and guess what? I'm going to have a toy on the shelf.
And I get it. Like as a designer, I get it. I have.
It wasn't a hard conversation to have, because in my mind, dragons was always like the backup theme, but it had to happen.
But Travis, you respected the effort more than the result, right? Like you respected that she put that much effort into putting that, and that probably got that game to the level of you investing your own time into it.
Yeah. I have a game that I've pitched with Jesse for 2.5 years, this Mad Max game. I've had 9 publishers look at it, and 9 publishers want it, and no one knew how to make it. And 3 times people were like, what if we made it Mario Kart? And I said, what if you give me the prototype back right now, you non-Mad Max loving so-and-so? And I refused. I refused to let someone make the game that wasn't the game that I wanted it to be, because I felt very strongly that it worked with that theme. So I said no, and I think at one point it was, I know Andrew's in the room, so I'm a little worried about talking about IPs.
Andrew,
but at one point I was talking to a company that said they were pretty sure they could get a Mario Kart theme or something, a video game theme that would work with it, so it would have had an IP on it, and I just said no. I was like, I'd rather the game not come out than the game come out not the way that I wanted. So I guess I'm a hypocrite, because for my own games, I want to stick to my guns, but with other people's games, I want to reach inside and tear it apart.
No, what you're saying is you
get to
want
do that.
control. Like you've already said it. You want the control. So when you're the publisher,
control.
you want control over what it's going to look like, and when you're the designer, you want control over what it's going to look like.
And that's a big part of this. Like if you're setting out and you are willing to kickstart it yourself, maybe that's something that you want to do or is part of the equation for you, then do the art, like do what you want to do. And if you still show it to publishers, and I've done this many times where I have a game I'm working on, I'm planning to publish it myself, I show it to a publisher I think it's a good fit for, and they want the game. Every time, I've done this 3 times, they've bought the art. So, I paid the artist, so I just showed them here was how much I paid for the art, and they pay me for the art, and they're releasing the games with the art that I did. Now, you got to make sure you're buying good art, though, right? You have to have a good eye for what makes good art, right? So that's important. But if you don't publish it through a publisher, then you can do it. Then you can Kickstarter on your own. And if you're going to Kickstarter, you've got to have art. You've got to have it. So you're going to have to invest in it.
So 2.5 years later, with the Mad Max game, my partner goes, I went to this con and I played this game with this Canadian guy, and it's amazing. And he's like, I want to sign it. He played my freaking game, and the co-designer didn't tell him that it was my game. So my game got signed by my business partner unknowingly. The only game Arnaud has ever signed, which was my game. So now, after 2.5 years of pitching this thing, having everyone from Asmodee to wherever, the smallest publisher you could think of, look at it, I'm putting out my own game, but only because my partner signed it without me knowing it.
Living the dream, right there. That's it.
It found a home.
Doesn't even have to do it.
Yeah. And actually, time-wise, we are kind of out of time. I think you find everyone up here is just absolutely charming. And certainly everyone here is probably, like, if you've got additional questions, you want to talk more, grab people as they head out. But thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everyone, for being here on the panel. If there's one thing that excites you about gaming, game design, or something you'd be super excited to see, what is that one thing? Ignacy.
I'm so wrong person to answer this question.
Oh, or the best.
I will think about it.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Lang, God, now I think I'm doing it on purpose.
I'm sorry, can the senator please repeat the question?
What excites you? What are you excited to see? What is just exciting about game design? What would you love to see in front of you? Anything that falls under the heading of excitement. What do you want?
I want to see a game that makes me ask a question that I've never asked before.
I'm assuming a good question, like a positive question.
I'm really excited about the evolution of gaming as, more mechanics come in and more game design comes in and more themes come in, and it's expanding. Like, you can look at like the history of music or film and see how things evolve, and game design has evolved like at a crazy pace over the last few years, and I'm really excited to see how that continues to move forward.
Yeah. I'm excited that an idea that I had like 8 years ago is gonna happen. I mean, and that's what all of us want to see. So it's, kind of the dream. I'm super excited about that.
I want to publish a game about pigeons pooping on people, though.
Let me tell you.
I've heard there's a pigeon
Okay, but
pooping
here's
game.
the one thing I have to say about that, just real quick. The thing is Travis made a really good point. He's like, look, we could do this pigeon thing, it'll sell, and people will play it once. but I think you want more than that from the game. I think you want it to be something where people would play it over and over and over again. And I was like, you're right, you know, and it's hard to let those things you love and are precious. But for the record, like the mating action in that game is like crazy.
Who would buy a $30 game about pigeons pooping on people?
Yeah, is it bad
play a game and they turn
that I know
those
all these
Who
people
will be looking
personally
forward
except
to
for one?
kickstarting Dirty Dragons next year? Every hand should go up right now, or you'll never be on this panel with me ever. I don't really have the power to say that. I just like saying it. All right, what excites you?
I like starting something new. I mean, it's really hard. You have to hold yourself back a lot of times, especially when you have deadlines. But that chance to sit down and say, I'm going to make this thing that I wrote down forever ago or drew or whatever it is, I'm going to make it. And that's the best part until it doesn't work. But it's so much fun when you think it's going to.
Erica, let's make a game together. Sure. Okay. T-Rev,
What was the question again?
what do you excite? When you think of
As a
gaming
designer,
and anything?
I'm on so many things. Which thing?
Excitement. When it comes to gaming excitement, what jumps in your head?
Honestly, the reason I do this job, and it sounds so sappy and like a canned response, is I really like working with people and I like seeing people get to where they want to be. You know, like one of my developers worked in a medical gas canning factory. This guy's like one of the best developers on the earth. And he worked in a place where his hands could be blown off every day. And now he comes to work and makes games and he loves it and he's happy. And that makes me happy. And that's the best part of all of this. I don't really care about the accolades or the autographs.
Right.
All those
All
autographs.
three of them.
All.
Who here has asked Travis for an autograpth?
What's that?
Okay,
Can I have
just
your
one.
autograph?
Okay,
We've been
Mr.
drawing for
Andrews.
like 2 hours.
Mr. Andrews.
I mean, very similar to what Travis said. I'm wired in the same way. I love working with different people. I would actually even maybe emphasize, I'm really excited to see more diversity happening with designs. I know there's been some negativity and some incidences of late, but also I think this is pushing our hobby forward, and it's giving us a lot of opportunity to have really meaningful conversations and really cool people bringing games to the forefront. So we're finding more and more games from different voices and different creators, and that's only going to make our hobby more exciting. So I'm really pumped about that.
Perfect ending. Thank you guys so much for coming. This was a ton of fun. So any further questions, you can find everybody and enjoy the rest of Dice Tower.